And I think my fire alarm is like acting up right now in the worst time right now, but I don't know which one it is. If it's so you might hear that beep until I fix it. So continue, let me see. Okay. Okay, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. It's 10:07. Jane, you established that we do have a quorum. Before we get into business, did you hear that? Oh my God, okay. Let's review the process for the working group members as well as for the public who has joined us this morning. For the working group members, when you'd like to speak, click on the raise your hand tab. And did you go through that this morning with everybody, the icon? You have control of your video, so show yourself when you'd like to speak. So raise your hand and put your video on and I'll call on you. So is there any questions before we continue on? I see no hands raised. So Jane, can you provide us a quick reminder about public comments and how that works?
Yes, as noted on the cover of today's meeting agenda, in addition to the emailed comments, the public also may provide live comments during today's meeting. To provide a live verbal comment during the meeting, please join the Zoom meeting either by phone or computer. At the time of public comments, members of the public are advised to, quote, raise the hand in your Zoom feature if you wish to provide comments. The raised hand feature can be found on the Zoom toolbar for those who are joining via computer and by entering *9 for those joining via telephone only. The chair will call on members of the public by name of those joining via computer and by the last 3 digits of your telephone number for those joining by telephone. All comments received prior to the close of the meeting will be made part of the meeting record. The instructions for providing live comments also are on the bottom of the cover page of today's meeting agenda, which can be accessed from the homepage of SANDAG's website, www.sandag.org. And just a note that the comments in the chat are not considered part of the public record. So the chat is only to be used for purposes of letting people know if something, for example, that your video isn't working or something that you need to continue with the meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Great, thank you, Jane. And so we're on the welcome and introductions. So welcome to another virtual meeting of the Interagency Technical Working Group. I appreciate everybody's time today. I know there's so much going on in this world that I really do appreciate the time you're taking this morning to spend a few hours with us. Last time we did a roll call, Jane and members, we went over the list of confirmed attendees. Shall we do it that way again, or shall we just go down the list of who are here to introduce themselves? I can do a roll call as well. I have this up in front of me.
Yeah.
So let's do a roll call.
Sure.
So San Pasquale.
Present. Morning, Chairwoman and everyone.
Barona.
Barona's here, along with Shayla Alvarez, Director of Government Affairs.
Good morning, you two. Campo Band of Kumeyaay Nation. Weapai. The Ipai Nation of Santa Isabel. Hoya Band of Listeño Indians.
Oh.
La Posta Band of the Kumeyaay Nation. Los Coyotes. Manzanita Band of the Kumeyaay Nation. Mesa Grande. Paula Band of Mission Indians.
Castigon here on Paula's behalf, and I also have a new staffer, Jeremy Zagarella, late of Palma, who we stole. And Chairwoman, you might want to put just a new battery in your smoke alarm.
I don't know which one it is, and I don't want to leave you guys. So bear with me. Thank you, Shasta.
When the time comes, you know, you can put a battery in the smoke alarm.
Okay. Palma. Rincon.
Rincon is here.
Hey, Alfonso, how are you doing, Councilman?
Doing good. You got a bird in your room.
I do. It's a little cocktail or I don't know birds, but anyway, Saquon Band of the Kumeyaay Nation. Viejas,
Not here yet.
Ray will be joining us.
Yes.
Southern California Tribal Chair Association.
Chairman
Okay,
Devers is here. I think Chairman Devers is here.
Yeah, I'm here.
hello.
Hello.
Bureau of Indian Affairs. I believe I saw Leonard's name on the list.
Yes.
I'm here. So Leonard.
Hi, Leonard.
Hi,
We have
everybody.
Caltrans, District 11. I saw Jose. County of San Diego.
Good morning, everyone. This is Richard Chen with the County of San Diego.
Morning, Richard. Metropolitan Transit System.
Hey, this is Beverly Neff with MTS.
Hi, Beverly.
Good morning.
North County Transit District.
No.
No, okay. And then the other Sandag staff, I apologize for that. Colleen is here, Jane, Tuweri, Tracy is on, I believe. I saw Tracy's
Yes.
production today.
on. Hello, Tracy. And Catherine, Catherine on as well.
Yeah.
Great. As we continue the situation of not, thank you for everybody introducing themselves and being here. As we continue the situation of not being able to meet in person on one of our reservations, I do want to continue some of our traditions, which is a blessing at the beginning of our meeting. So I apologize for putting anybody on the spot, but I would like to respectfully request Council Member Kolb or Chairman Romero, if one of you guys would like to do the blessing, we would be honored.
Go ahead, Thorpe. I respect the elder. You might be older than me. Who knows? Just don't tell nobody that. All right. All right. I'd be honored to. I will say a blessing. Thank you, Chairwoman Pinto. My great Father, thank you for this beautiful day. This is the time of the year that we honor our ancestors that have walked before us. Let's keep them in our minds and our hearts and our prayers. Great Father, this beautiful day that you brought us, we listen to the wind and we listen to the words that you taught us. We reach out to you, Great Father, to guide us, bring us wisdom, bring health to our people. And let's not forget our young ones that are dying too fast before their times, Great Father, and all the missing women and children and men throughout the country, the Native American people that we need to bring home, or we need to bring solidarity to their homes. Thank you, Great Father, for this beautiful day, and thank you for bringing us together. And Yahweh, Amen.
Thank you, Chairman. Do we need to have public comments after the blessing, Jane? I know we talked about having public comments after.
Yeah, I think we're fine.
We're good. Okay, awesome. So the first item on the agenda are the two sets of meeting minutes. I know we weren't able to approve the last set at the last meeting as it was a special focused meeting. So we have two sets, one from June 24th, 2020, and the second set from September 14th, 2020. Everybody should have received a copy of these. Please review if you feel comfortable. I'd love to get a motion to approve both sets.
This is Shasta. I'm happy to offer a motion to approve both sets of meeting minutes.
Thank you, Shasta. So there's a motion on the floor by Paula to approve June 24th, 2020, and also September 14th, 2020. Do I hear a second? I'll
second that from Rincon.
Thank you, Rincon. Any more discussion? Okay, motion and a second on the floor to approve both sets of meeting minutes. Please say aye to approve.
So we actually have to do a
Aye.
roll call for this, unfortunately.
Oh.
So I'll go down the list, and if you can say aye, as we call it. Hamul,
Aye.
San Pasqual,
Aye.
Verona,
Aye.
Paula,
Aye.
Rincon,
Aye.
and Southern California Tribal Chairmen's Association.
Aye.
All right. We're good. It's unanimous, passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. If tribe members would like to offer any comments, raise your hand. So are there any comments or public comments, Jane, on this?
No, there are no public comments.
Okay. So let's continue on. Now we go into actually public member comments and communications. Members of the public shall have the opportunity to address the working group. Are there any comments on item number two? Anything?
No, I don't see any public comments.
Okay. So after I give my chair's report, I'm going to address this, and I'm going to have Andrew take over. But I just want to give a real brief update on the co-chair's report. I also chair the Native American Advisory Committee to Caltrans, and we've had a really good year of robust conversation. But one of the things that really stands out this year is a subcommittee that we established, and this is a collaboration with all the tribal liaisons and the Caltrans districts. I think there's 12 of them. And what is going on is cultural monitoring is a big issue in California. As you know, there's lots of constructions, different entities. There's the county, there's Caltrans, there's various construction groups who do construction. And so it is important that we reach out to the tribal communities to get cultural monitors, because no matter where you go, I feel like you're going to come across, remnants of our people and our ancestors, which we respect very much. And the really positive thing about this subcommittee that was established by the NAC, we had our first meeting on Friday. Shasta was part of the meeting. Thank you, Shasta, for attending. I think I owe her something for attending, but it was a really good discussion, a first start in that a lot of the cultural monitors, the TIPOs, the Tribal Historic Preservation Officers, and the tribal liaisons are very, we're all on the same page in that we want consistency throughout the state of California in how cultural monitors are selected and how they're used to monitor any construction going on by Caltrans. So everybody had positive things to say. They're looking forward to further discussions, but this was just a first meeting of many. And I really appreciate Sarah Allred, who has taken the lead on this and developed this subcommittee, and various members of different tribes who also participated, including Shasta and some from Southern California, my TIPO, Lisa Kumper. And we'll continue to update you guys on what's happening. But right now we had the first meeting, very positive, and it's a good working relationship with Caltrans that we're having. And that's all I have to report on my co-chair's report. I don't know, Colleen, if you have anything to add, or if you had a report that you want.
I have a few things, Chairwoman. Just our big effort, of course, is the regional plan update. We appreciate that all of you participated with us in a workshop in September. We're bringing together multiple working groups tomorrow to have each of them provide input on the vision so that we really make sure we have the best possible plan going forward. Just a couple of other things to report. Priority projects for Sandag, in addition to the regional plan, stabilizing Del Mar Bluffs. And we've had a number of state agencies visiting us and thankfully providing us some funding so that we can work to stabilize the cliffs and reduce the address safety and reduce some of the concerns we have about, the erosion there that could really impact that whole corridor. The other thing, we're getting closer and closer on our Mid-Coast project that's expected to open roughly a year from now. And just, Chairwoman, as you had mentioned, the cultural aspect has been a really important part of that construction project. And we've had people, we've had the agencies and tribal representatives there actually all along the way. And we have found some unique cultural things in that construction project. So that wraps up my report for today. I think we have some great items to brief you all on in the agenda, including the more detailed planning. There's the big picture work that we're doing on the regional plan, but then the corridor plans, you'll hear from Rachel Kennedy on that, and just really appreciate all your support. And the last thing I wanted to mention is I want all of you to keep in mind that we have this MOU between SANDAG and the Southern California Tribal Chairmen's Association that provides funding for us to work together, and actually provides funding to you to apply for grants to implement a lot of the really important projects that were identified in the tribal transportation strategy. So we hope that many of you will take advantage of the resources available there, and whatever we can do to help to support you, we want to be able to do that. So that concludes my report. And I think we'll move on then to the first agenda item. I don't know if we have any public comments on the co-chairs reports. Any public comments, Jane?
Not that I can see, only just to say that Ray Tran has joined the meeting from Viejas.
Great. Welcome, Ray Tran. So with that, I will introduce Sue Alpert, who is going to present the SANDAG 2021 Regional Transportation Improvement Program. And so this is known as the RTIP. And maybe Sue, when you present this, you can describe what is the difference between the RTP regional plan and the RTIP.
Good morning, and thank you, Colleen. Good morning, Chairwoman and members of the TIG. Yes, this item today is the Regional Transportation Improvement Program, or RTIP. Frequently, it gets confused with the Regional Transportation Plan, or the RTP. The difference is that this item is the 5-year short-term program of projects that implements the projects that are in the regional plan. So we take the regional plan and we take the first 5 years and we say, okay, how are we going to fund those? And we put them in the RTIP so that the funding can be made available to those projects. So today I'm here to discuss the preparation of the 2021 RTIP, including the schedule. All projects that are in the region that are funded with federal, state, and Transnet dollars are required to be programmed in the RTIP. California state laws requires that we update the RTIP every 2 years. So the 2021 RTIP will cover fiscal years 2021 through fiscal year 2025. It's a 5-year program. The update process began this summer in soliciting projects from across the region. And all projects are required to be submitted by the end of this month. We have combined the tribal projects into group listings by category. So we have one for vehicles, road maintenance, and planning as shown in the attachment. These tribal projects are programmed based on information in the 2019 Tribal Transportation Improvement Plan. There is also one safety project program for the Barona Band of Mission Indians. That's the Highway Safety Improvement Program. On December 11th, the board will be asked to release the 2021 RTIP for a 30-day public comment period. All members and interested parties will be notified and are asked to review the projects, and comments are encouraged. So please be looking for an e-blast to come out for that, and there'll be a link provided. After the public comment period, there'll be a public hearing at the February 5th, 2021 Transportation Committee meeting, and the board will be asked to adopt the 2021 RTIP at its meeting on February 26th. Federal approval is expected on April 16th, 2021. And any additional projects which may be added to the Tribal Transportation Improvement Program may be added to the RTIP through an amendment at any time throughout the term of the 21 RTIP. So that concludes my report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Great. Thank you. Any questions? Please raise your hand and put your video on. Any questions, Jane? Do you see anybody with their hands raised?
Sorry, no, I don't see any public comments or member comments or hands raised anyway.
Notice the silence in my house. I have taken care of this issue. Moving right along, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Moving right along to item number 5 on our agenda, which is a comprehensive multimodal corridor program. And Rachel Kennedy will present an oversight. And then we have examples of the CMCPs from North and East County presented. And number 1, we have the San Vicente Corridor, State Route 67, Molina Pereira, Caltrans Pereira.
Sorry, I don't, Chairwoman, I just saw Shasta put up her hand, and I'm not sure if it's for the last item or for this item.
Shasta.
Oh, you know what? I think that was a mistake, but as long as my hand is raised, how did you fix the smoke alarm? These are important questions.
It was the carbon monoxide alarm, and I took it off the thing and I took the ding batteries out. So between now and 12, I better not have a carbon monoxide issue, or else I'm going to pass out.
Lower my hand now and mute. Goodbye.
Appreciate your concern. So here are the 2 examples for item number 5, which was a San Vicente corridor. That was Pereira. And then number 2, the North County Regional Corridor, 78 Kareem Scarlett, District 11. And then when we'd like to get your input on how the tribes feel that tribal nations would like to be consulted on this effort. Okay, please take it away, Rachel.
Thank you, Chairwoman Pinto. Thank you very much for having us this morning to provide some information to all of you on the comprehensive multimodal corridor plans. We have a presentation that's being pulled up right now. Thank you, Tracy. The SANDAG board in September of 2019 allocated funding to prepare a number of comprehensive multimodal corridor plans for the SANDAG region. And today I wanted to share some information with you. Next slide is good. Thanks, Tracy. About what are comprehensive multimodal corridor plans. So these plans are integrated multimodal transportation plans that are aligned with state goals and funding. They provide a greater level of detail than is available within the regional plan that Colleen mentioned earlier. So we have our kind of higher level planning that occurs through the regional plan. And then these comprehensive multimodal corridor plans, or CMCPs, as we often refer to them, help to kind of go into a more detailed level within these specific corridors. These will be looking at all forms of transportation, local roadways, transit, highways, active transportation, goods movement, and how they all interact within these areas. And these CMCP documents are recommended by the California Transportation Commission for SANDAG to be competitive for State Senate Bill 1 funds and some other funding sources at the state and federal level. Next slide, please. So here in the San Diego region, one of the corridor plans that we put together in the past is the North Coast Corridor Plan. And we think of this sort of as a first level or a first generation CMCP. It wasn't part of this newer CMCP program, but it was a little different than some of the past corridor studies that might have kind of focused more generally on a freeway corridor and didn't look too far beyond it. So within this North Coast Corridor Plan, it looked not only at improvements on the I-5 freeway, but also needed improvements in the low sand rail corridor that includes the coaster and Amtrak service. It looked at active transportation projects to be built as well, parallel and adjacent to this corridor, and also looked at how the local roadways interfaced within this area. So the CMCPs that we're starting now kind of take that to a little bit more advanced level. Within, can I have slide number 4, Tracy?
4, yes, okay.
Thank you. So this image here, you may have seen with some of the work that's been ongoing with the regional plan, but this shows a complete corridor. So with the efforts that have been underway in developing the 2021 regional plan, we're exploring complete corridors. And just to walk through this image from left to right with you, on the left-hand side, you see a highway here, but it's not just sort of a traditional highway. It's a dynamic roadway, which can have the lanes change for users throughout the day, depending on the travel needs and travel volumes. So here you could have lanes that are specifically for people who are carpooling, or certain lanes that are for transit buses to be traveling on. You might be using your shoulder during those peak times where you have a lot of traffic, or where you might need to move some of your emergency vehicles through if you have a collision on the freeway. We also see here a lane for connected vehicles. As technologies advance with cars and trucks in the future, we see some vehicles being able to talk to each other and travel a little more closely together, allowing us to get more efficiency out of a lane. And then also lanes for all users. If we move over towards the middle of this image, here underground, you can see high-speed transit services that travel to different destinations in the region. And the green line there that's in the middle, you can see a bike path providing active transportation connections. And then moving over to the right of the image, here you see a sidewalk that has multiple transit connections to the underground transit, local buses, and a roadway that can accommodate a variety of users, crosswalks for pedestrians, connecting with mobility hubs, which bring together different transportation services, as well as other elements such as, lockers where you might be able to pick up packages that you've ordered. Next slide, please. So on our next slide here, this map shows the areas of our phase 1 CMCPs. So within the funding that was allocated by the board, we have 2 phases of CMCPs that we will be preparing in partnership with Caltrans. So walking through the map here from north to south, the first corridor that you see there in yellow is our North County corridor. This includes the western portion of State Route 78, the Sprinter corridor, and a portion of State Route 76. In the orange color, we see the San Vicente corridor, which follows State Route 67. In the green, towards the middle of the map, you see the Coast Canyons and Trails corridor, which includes a small portion of State Route 67, and then State Route 52 and the trolley corridor. In blue, you see the Central Mobility Hub and Connection CMCP area, which is focused around a potential future Central Mobility Hub, as well as includes the San Diego Airport, the Midway area in Point Loma. And then in purple, you see the South Bay to Sorrento corridor, which is physically, geographically one of our larger corridor study areas. And that includes traveling from the Sorrento Valley area on 805 and then 5 in the south, all the way to the border with Mexico, and also includes the island of Coronado. So these are the CMCPs that the teams are working to start developing now. Next slide, please. And then here on this slide, we note the different corridors that we will be preparing CMCPs for in our second phase. And that's anticipated to be occurring in the fiscal year 2023, 24, 25 timeframe. Next slide, please. So with the CMCP program, the California Transportation Commission has developed a set of policies and planning considerations that all of the documents should be including and addressing in their preparation. So as I mentioned earlier, these are, multimodal documents. It's not looking at just one type of transportation mode, but a variety of different ways of getting around the region or within that particular corridor. Additionally, these studies should look to help improve air quality and public health, include public safety and security, making sure that we're serving low income and disadvantaged communities with the transportation solutions that these corridor plans develop. And helping to prevent residential and small business displacement and encourage economic development and goods movement. Next slide, please. So here on this next slide, we have a high-level schedule. So in the spring, the teams work to come up with work plans. Within the summer and fall of this year, the teams have been gathering existing conditions data and doing data analysis and putting together their stakeholder engagement strategies. In fall and then winter continuing into next year, we'll be conducting community outreach. And then in the spring and fall of 2021, we'll be developing the draft and the final plans. And so today we have two of our project managers. As I mentioned earlier, this is a joint effort between Caltrans and Sandag. All of our project teams have staff from both Sandag and Caltrans, and in some cases a Sandag staff member is the project manager, in other cases it's a Caltrans staff member. We've also been working to engage other agency partners, local jurisdictions, and today are coming to you to find out information or input from you on how we can best engage with the tribal nations as we go through the process of preparing these CMCPs. So now I would like to turn it over to Melina Pereira with Caltrans. She is the project manager for the San Vicente corridor, which focuses on the areas around State Route 67. After Melina, we'll have a presentation from Kareem Scarlett. He's the project manager for the North County Corridor CMCP. So with that, I'll turn it to you, Melina. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. So good morning, Chairwoman and members of the working group and members of the public. My name is Melina Pereira. I am the project manager for the San Vicente CMCP. And today I will give you an overview of the CMCP for the San Vicente corridor plan and the development. Next slide, please. So in this presentation, I will walk you through our study area, look at the corridor characteristics, the travel patterns, the issues and opportunities, some of the strategies, and our schedule for the CMCP. Next slide. The San Vicente CMCP study area stretches along 67 from Mapleview Street in Lakeside to 78 in downtown Ramona. The study will also consider travel shed effects from the surrounding roadway network on 78, San Vicente Road, Wildcat Canyon Road, Poway Road, and Scripps Poway Parkway. The stretch of 67 contained in the corridor is a conventional 2-lane highway, and this corridor is predominantly rural and includes 23 census tracts. The large study area allows the CMCP to capture the backcountry and the tribal lands within the immediate travel shed. Next slide, please. So the 67 plays an important role in the corridor identity, as well as it's a critical link for East County to the rest of the region. There is an active Transnet project currently on the 67 from Mapleview to Ramona, which is currently beginning the environmental phase. In addition to the 67 highway, the CMCP will also focus on a holistic approach for the larger corridor area, including multimodal transportation options such as transit. We'll be looking at bike and pedestrian paths, equestrian trails, etc. Next slide, please. So the San Vicente CMCP has the most tribal lands within the study area and the most opportunity for coordination. We understand that cultural resources aren't limited to just the reservation boundaries, and continued coordination will take place at the corridor level. Regional access to these reservations is centered on 67 and SR 78. Next slide. This corridor, like the region, is very diverse. Here are some of the corridor statistics. 3.3% of the region's population lives within this corridor. Housing is predominantly single family, and these statistics vary by individual census tracts. Next slide. This map shows the distribution of non-white minority populations. The highest concentration of minority populations are within the denser census blocks, such as downtown Ramona. Next slide. This map shows the distribution of low-income populations. Similar to the previous map, the highest concentration of low-income populations is within the denser census blocks. Next slide. So most of the residents have to travel to employment centers outside of the corridor. The employment centers that appear within the corridor fall within the Tier 4 employment centers. So that would be the Poway Business Park, Lakeside Industrial Area, and Ramona Main Street. We also identified Barona as an employment center, but it doesn't fall within the tier criteria listed above. Next slide. So we are identifying the unique needs of this corridor, being a conventional highway in a rural setting. Here are some of the issues and opportunities that we have highlighted. Safety is always our #1 priority, as well as efficient network performance. Since this corridor is part of the main roadway connection for the tribal lands, we want to hear from you. What are your needs? What issues and opportunities do you identify? What are the improvements needed that will help us build a more robust multimodal system that will address your needs? How can we develop projects and strategies that are implementable and that will address a whole host of issues in a balanced way? Emergency response and wildlife evacuations are very critical in this corridor. So we are coordinating with CAL FIRE, the county sheriff, and CHP for wildfire preparedness and evacuations. Wildlife connectivity and environmental sensitivity is also our priority. This corridor has a lot of open space, parks, recreation areas, and wildlife preserves. Maintaining the community character, protecting cultural resources, and respecting the community goals are very important to us for this CMCP development. We're working with the planning groups within the corridor. So we have met with the Ramona Community Planning Group, and we will be meeting with the Lakeside Planning Group next month. Also the urban and rural interface connecting all of these place types, the suburban place types, industrial, Main Street areas, and keeping them all well connected is a very important part of this CMCP development. Next slide. So in addition to the 5 big moves, the CMCP team is building on the strategies and framework outlined in key state planning documents. The 2 primary resources are the 2050 California Transportation Plan and the 2020 Smart Mobility Framework. These multi-pronged strategies will build on the goals and objectives in the 5 big moves and the CMCP program. Additionally, we will focus on social equity and environmental justice by removing traditional barriers to underserved communities or communities of concern. We're also looking to integrate technology, look at greenhouse gas emission reduction, promote multimodal accessibility, and accelerate broadband deployment, which is especially important in our current environment with the stay-at-home orders and working from home and the kids in virtual classrooms. Next slide. So this is our high-level timeline of our next steps. We began our initial stakeholder engagement and data collection. We're currently in the process of onboarding our consultant for this effort. Our next milestone is presenting to the Transportation Committee on December 11th. We're working to establish our baseline and existing conditions for this corridor, as well as finalizing performance measures with our stakeholders. With that information, we will develop projects and strategies to be analyzed for performance and phasing. Our goal is to have the draft document by next summer, and then throughout the process, we will be soliciting feedback and conducting public engagement. Next slide. So I think this slide was from the previous presentation, but if you go to the next slide, here's my contact information. So I'm the project manager for the CMCP, and then Alex Estrella is the SANDAG lead for the CMCP. So you can contact us with any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Melina. And then Tracy, can we please pull up the presentation for Kareem?
There we go.
Thank you, Tracy.
There are questions, but just to let you, I'll share those at the end.
Okay. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Kareem Scarlett, and I am the project manager for the SR 78 and 76 corridors. And I'm also leading the CMCP development in the North County with my SANDAG lead, Brian Lane, who is a senior transit planner with the agency. Next slide, please. So for today's presentation, I wanted to share with you a high-level overview of the project that will consist of a discussion on the study area, corridor deficiencies in the transportation network, demographics. We'll talk about travel patterns, and wrap it up with the proposed schedule for the document. Next slide. So the following are some of the initial activities that are underway or have been completed for the study. Starting off with defining the travel shed, also known as the study area. We utilized origin and destination data to take a look at where employees of the major employment centers within the corridor were coming from. As to be expected, the majority of these employees live within the adjacent, live adjacent to SR 78. So the study includes the city boundaries of Oceanside, Carlsbad, Vista, San Marcos, Escondido, and a small portion of the county of San Diego. We've also conducted an initial outreach to the cities and NCTD, basically going on a listening tour to see what issues and challenges they were dealing with within their transportation network, and to document any completed or ongoing studies they had. Utilizing this information from these studies, as well as those completed by SANDAG and Caltrans, has helped us identify some of the corridor characteristics, such as existing and projected demographics and travel patterns inside the study area, as well as movement into and out of it. We've also begun, meeting with our technical working group, and the group consists of representatives from the cities within the study area, as well as the County of San Diego, and a representative from NCTD. And finally, we've identified some of the draft corridor deficiencies within the transportation network that I will be sharing with you later in the presentation. Next slide. So unfortunately, there are no tribal lands within the study area of this CMCP. The closest reservation is the San Pasqual reservation shown in the map. Next slide. So the following is a draft list of deficiencies developed by the team and the initial outreach. And I just want to highlight a few of the reoccurring themes we heard from the cities. One of them was cut-through traffic. Pretty much every jurisdiction that we met with expressed concern about this topic. When we met with the city of Escondido, they were concerned with the amount of traffic that was going through their city and heading up to the Valley View community. Another reoccurring theme was the lack of viable modal choices or transportation choices. This corridor, is very car-centric, and the Sprinter really isn't looked at as an alternative mode of transportation. And so, that was something that was constantly brought up when we did meet with them. And then lastly, freeway bottlenecks, specifically on the east end of the SR 78 corridor around the interchange of 1578 was a reoccurring theme, even with the city of Oceanside. Next slide. All right, so we're going to talk a bit about the demographics within the corridor area. Next. All right, so over the past 25 years, the corridor has seen a tremendous amount of growth in its population, its jobs, and home construction. It's anticipated to continue to grow by another 20% over the next 20 years. With this anticipated growth, as well as implementation of new state and local laws and plans, it's really important that we develop a balanced transportation system that is equitable and can provide travel options for all of its users. Next slide. So as part of the study, we looked at the home to work commute trips, and this slide is showcasing the main job centers in the corridor, with the exception of Camp Pendleton, which has about 49,000 jobs on base. As you can see, the majority of these employment centers cluster along the San Marcos Boulevard / Palomar Airport Road area. These job centers represent about 80% of the total jobs within the corridor, and approximately 60% of the employees at these job centers also live within the corridor. Next slide. So this exhibit is showcasing the housing density within the corridor overlaid by the employment centers. Such maps as these can help the team identify certain transportation solutions for an area, as well as help with determining locations of things such as mobility hubs within the corridor. Next slide. All right, so the team has begun exploring some of the travel patterns for certain locations within the corridor, and we're going to explore a couple spots. The first location is the job center along Palomar Airport Road. This exhibit is showcasing the AM peak period trip distribution within a 3 and 7 mile radius of the job center. So 43% of the trips that are generated at this location, happen within a 3-mile radius. 74% of these trips happen within a 7-mile radius. And then about 5% of the trips to this job center come from outside of the county. Next slide. The next location we looked at is the main gate at Camp Pendleton. And we found that 18% of the trips to this gate, happen within a 3-mile radius. 45% happen within a 7-mile radius. And about 10% of the trips come from outside of the county. Next slide. Then we also looked at some of the educational centers, such as Cal State San Marcos and Palomar College, and found that 29% of the trips to these institutions happen within a 3-mile radius, 59% within a 7-mile radius, and then about 12% come from outside of the county. Next slide. Okay. And then we did a quick analysis on the amount of traffic that goes through the city of Escondido to get to the Valley View / Rincon area, specifically the casinos. Since we heard this from the city of Escondido, we wanted to take a look. And so we found that about 2,300 vehicles head to these locations daily, during the week. And this jumps up to 3,500 vehicles during the weekend. Like I said, this is traffic going through the city of Escondido, strictly. But these numbers would be higher if we were going to consider the travel patterns for the entire Valley View community. So right now, like I said, we're only looking at traffic heading to the casinos in these areas. So this is both Valley View and Harris Casino. Okay, next slide. Okay, project schedule. Next slide.
Excuse me. This is Councilman Kobe. I have a real quick question. In the future here, because they are going to do that big development there in Valley Center, as you come up the grade from Escondido, it'd be right off of Woods Valley there. And gee, I can't think of the precise name, but that development is going to build over 600 homes there. Is there any anticipated, maybe I missed it, I stepped away from my computer here. Is there any anticipation it's going towards in the future of development for expanding the roads in that area? Because that's really going to be a big bump of new residencies that are going to be moving into that area.
You know what? I mean, that's definitely something we will be taking into consideration is future growth. I guess the thing is that development is new to me, but we definitely can take a look at that and take a look at the implications.
Yeah, I'm sorry if this was the wrong time to ask that question. I apologize. But I was just kind of, it is coming. They've already, they broke ground. They've got, it's going to happen, and it's really going to have an impact on traffic in that area. As how they expanded the grade there. They went from the 2 lanes to now we got the 4 lanes going north and south, and then you get to the top of the grade, and then it shrinks back down. Yeah, it's 4 lanes still, but I think in time we're gonna possibly have to put lights and maybe an extra lane or such. But okay, thank you. Sorry.
No, not a problem. All right.
Hi, Kareem. This is Richard with the County of San Diego.
Hey, Richard.
Hi, just to kind of help with that question, I'm not sure of exactly which particular development is being referred to here by the chairman, but our planning and development services, I'm aware of, has conditioned various roadway improvements, possibly a traffic signal, another traffic signal on the Valley Center Road, and some other internal improvements as part of the development, new roadways. Also, the county planning and development services is working on a Valley Center Road corridor study to try to make various improvements along the roadway. So just wanted to add that. If there's any questions, feel free to email me and I can forward you to the correct contact in PDS, and they might be able to provide additional information on what roadway improvements are being considered.
Yeah, Richard, on the county and as part of our technical working group, Jacob Armstrong and Damon are both on the group, or so.
Yeah, they would know.
Okay, so I'll bring it up to them because they haven't brought it up.
Okay.
To me. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, so project schedule. So we are currently in the process of bringing on a consultant so we can get the public engagement portion of the study underway. Currently, we plan to have that part underway in January of next year, followed by having a draft of a proposed transportation solutions after some analysis has been conducted and public input has been taken into account. Then a draft document will be developed and released for public comment. And then lastly, a final document will be issued in the fall of 2021. That will be basically a culmination of the analysis and the technical studies and the input from the community and other stakeholders. Next slide. So these are the different ways that you can connect with us regarding these CMCPs. And then, basically that concludes my presentation. The following is, contact information for myself and the SANDAG lead, Brian Lane. If there are any questions, I would be more than happy to address them. Thank you.
Thanks, Kareem. Any questions from the committee members at this time? Comments?
Chairwoman, if I may.
I think Shasta has.
Oh, sure. Andrew and then Shasta.
And Ray Turan as well.
Okay, great. I can't see, I don't know if it's because I'm a panelist, I can't raise my hand, but I couldn't find it. So, Kareem, thank you for the presentation. Obviously, the northern corridor hits close to home. I just wrote down a few notes based on how some of the data was gathered. One of my first questions was, how was the travel shed established? You addressed that. However, I would recommend that the northern and eastern portion be expanded. Within a 10 or 15 minute drive, we have employment centers from Paula, Palma, Rincon, San Pasqual. So you have 4 large centers of employment when you have that in the context of Valley Center and the local area there. So I think that should be addressed, because that is a huge impact to the corridor area that you're looking at. Escondido talked about the cut-through traffic going to Valley View, and I hope they're coming to Valley View, but I think it's Valley Center. I would imagine they're cutting through to get to some of the other areas. And so that's 40% of those employees commute to outside or cut through Escondido. So that's nearly half. And I think has a great impact to that corridor. The other thing I would like to highly recommend is having a tribal rep on this advisory group to explain and talk about, you know, what our challenges are from the tribal side. You know, because we have employees who travel to and from work. We have our guests. We have goods movement. We have transit. So I would like to see that implemented, you know, now while the data is being looked at. So overall, I think this is a great thing that we're looking at, how to create these multimodal corridors. And, you know, we're looking at that as a working group at the regional level through our ITTS. So those were my recommendations. So how do you feel about having some tribal representation in these corridor studies?
I think it's definitely important. Like I said, I mean, those areas are definitely, you know, important employment centers as well. So having a tribal rep on the in the technical working group, I definitely would support that. You know, as far as expanding the study area, yeah, we can definitely have a further discussion about that to see what, you know, how far we can expand the study. But I'm definitely open to that discussion.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Shasta?
Thank you, Chairwoman. So a couple of things. Partly just a comment that I'm a little bit baffled that the studies so far do not include some of these developments, like the one that Alfonso mentioned in Valley Center. That development, it's so far along that some of the houses have already been built, and then there's a second development that's coming into place. And you know, the reason I mean, I know about this because we get consulted on the cultural aspects of it by the county for AB 52. And actually there was a sad instance where a cultural site was inadvertently destroyed by a disgruntled employee of the construction company. So, but I mean, those houses are already there. So maybe this is and the development's already started. So my question might be more for the county. Is the county not telling Sandag when they're building hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of homes in Valley Center, and that they should probably consider this as part of their planning and when they're looking at corridors? And then secondly, the unless I missed it, because I think I'll go ahead and say what everybody else doesn't want to, which is that when my camera is off, I'm multitasking, which means that maybe I'm not catching everything that I should when I try to answer an email while I'm listening. But I don't recall seeing anything about the 76 corridor, and there are hundreds of homes going in, and some have already been built on the junction of 76 and 15. But one of the issues we face here in Paula, and it also impacts the reservations further down 76, is the massive influx of traffic from people trying to avoid going north on 15 through Temecula, and they get stopped. You know, the traffic sometimes goes all the way down to the 76 where it crosses 15. So they get off at 76 and they drive through Paula to go up Paula Temecula Road to get home and avoid, you know, an additional 5 or 10 minutes sitting in traffic on the main highway. So that's a corridor issue, even if it may be that the areas that they're driving through don't qualify as far as being employment centers or residentially dense areas. So these are some things that I feel like might be missing from these studies.
Thank you, Shasta. Ray Tehran. Jane, did Ray have his hand up?
Jane, you're on mute.
Oh, oops, sorry. Yeah, Ray is a panelist, so he should be able to control his mic.
He said asked and answered. Okay.
Okay.
That's his comment. Okay.
Yeah, well, his issue was the, I'm scrolling back.
For the 67 corridor.
67 corridor of why Viejas is not being considered an employment center or doesn't meet the criteria. So I don't know if someone from,
So Jane, I responded in the chat and he's correct. Even Verona doesn't fall within the tiers listed on the slide, but I mentioned it because it falls within our study area.
Correct. And yeah, so I would say, you know, the tiers are for sort of a regional, the employment tiers are for a regional consideration, but I think at a sub-regional level, they should definitely be considered. I mean, there's various tiers. I don't know.
Yes, and I think Melina did mention in her presentation that they are looking at Verona as an employment center within their study area, even though the numbers are a little bit different than those tiers that are listed.
Yes, yes, we are. Thank you, Rachel.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments from the committee members?
Richard Chen?
Hi, I just wanted to chime in on just a little bit of one of Shasta's comment regarding whether or not the county communicates with Sandag regarding some of these larger developments. I don't work in PDS, but I'm aware of that when the county and when Sandag's working on the traffic forecast models and some of the land use models, the county provides input on to Sandag regarding what sorts of types of land use are being proposed in all the different zones and areas. I'm not aware of PDS communicating exactly specific projects with Sandag, but when it comes to the modeling and for Sandag, that the county communicates what's being proposed. So I just wanted to provide a little bit of insight on that. Thanks.
Thanks, Richard, for the clarification. And yes, with the data that was presented today, I was looking sort of at existing conditions or, things that are already on the ground, particularly sometimes looking back to 2019 or 2016 in some cases with some of the data. And we do work with all of the local jurisdictions to integrate their land use plans for the future into our forecast for the region and into our modeling tools. So as we start to look forward with the CMCP process to future years, 2025 or 2035, et cetera, those plans that the jurisdictions have shared with us as far as additional housing or additional employment, future growth in population would be reflected in the modeling that we'll be doing and in the traffic flows, et cetera, that are anticipated in the future.
Thank you. Jose, I'd like to acknowledge you.
All right, thank you. This is Jose Ornelas with Caltrans, and I just want to assure you that we will be taking a look at all traffic generators, whether for employment, commercial, residential, whatever generates traffic, we'll be looking at the facilities that they use.
Great. Thank you, Jose. So I want to hear from the tribes, the tribal representatives, some more tribal representatives about how do we best think to be consulted on this, on the sub-regional corridor studies. I heard from Andrew, and his recommendation is to add some tribal representatives. We heard from Shasta. Ray, any other tribal reps want to speak up about the consultation process? Any hands raised, Jane?
No, I don't see any hands raised.
There's also contact information that Kareem put, Melina put, and Rachel put that we could reach out and give our comments to them as well if no one wants to weigh in right now. But
Sheila has a raised hand. I'm sorry, Chair.
Shayla.
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 Yes.
Yes.
Another method we would.
That's the stadium, Shayla.
There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. The other method we were considering is through this group, this technical working group, bringing this information here to the tribes and having the tribal leaders access it, on a group basis also allows the opportunity to weigh in on it. And maybe you get, once we have more participation, you get more comments, ideally.
Good one. That's a good one. Any public comments up? I hear no more committee member comments. Are there any public comments or questions?
I can't hear them.
I do not see any public comments.
Okay, well, I do like Shayla's recommendation to bring that back here for the group consultation again, but we have this moment right now. So before we move on, any final questions or comments?
Okay. This is Shasta. Yeah, just one last comment that I concur with Andrew's recommendation that there be tribal representation. And, I know that the definitions of these corridors generally tend to focus on the high traffic areas, and that's understandable. But as we saw from the presentations, tribes to some degree are, I'll use the word, implicated in traffic. If you've got the city of Escondido, where I live, complaining about, or I should say, having concerns about traffic going to the reservations, and the reservations aren't included in those corridors, but clearly traffic to the reservations is something that needs to be considered. I will say too, as a resident of Escondido, that they're scapegoating the tribes. They've got their own issues for why the traffic sucks in Escondido, and it's not because of Valley Center, and not because of Valley View, and it's not because of Harrah's. But that being said, until I'm on the Escondido City Council, I'm just going to blame them. But yeah, I think that's important because, again, in a lot of ways we get left out of the discussion until somebody is looking for someone to blame. So right. We need that.
Agreed. Thank you both. Thank you, Shasta. And you have my vote for the Escondido City Council.
Well, thanks. I'll let you know if I run.
Okay, thank you for that comment and discussions. We're going to move right along to item number 6, which is the safety performance management targets for 2021. This will be from Sam Sanford. Please, Sam, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairwoman, and good morning. Good morning to all the working group members. So thank you for having me here again today. I was here just about a year ago presenting on the last annual update and do have a presentation to go along with this. Thank you, Tracy. I don't know if it's possible to go into presentation mode on these slides or if that messes things up. Some of the charts will get a little hard to see. It might be a bit of an eye test.
Let's see.
Oh, it might go to your second screen. It's okay. We can run through it.
You know what? Let me just try to.
If you push the from beginning.
There we go. I had to take my second screen off. So
okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Tracy. So just to preface this agenda item just a little bit. So this one is about setting annual targets for safety related performance measures. These are required by Federal Highway Administration. But I want to note that everybody has a lot of interest in safety, and we want to see what projects, what programs and policies are being enacted to drive those numbers down. There's a lot of effort parallel to this agenda item that I want to talk about just briefly before we jump into this item to kind of set the stage for this. So SANDAG continues to work with Caltrans and other partners on the Strategic Highway Safety Plan, which was recently updated and is now going through a 4-year development process to get those pieces and those challenge areas addressed. There's also a Highway Safety Improvement Program implementation plan, that's a mouthful, that's also being developed, and that'll be an annual plan that Caltrans is working on as well. So those two efforts are going forward and are really looking at those policies, programs, and projects to deliver the lower numbers that we're going to talk about for the targets today. This item is really just looking at the targets. We are required to go through this every year and set these targets. This particular one is on safety. So with that out of the way, the slide that's in front of you right now goes over 3 performance measurement areas that Federal Highways developed final rules for. And essentially each of these areas requires state DOTs and metropolitan planning organizations like SANDAG to come up with, use observed data to establish what's happened in the past, trends, and then future targets based on that data. Today, we're looking at fatalities and serious injuries on all public roadways. That's regardless of maintenance or ownership. It's just if it's open to the public, it's included in this data set. And there's 2 other areas, one on infrastructure condition, and the last one is on more system liability, freight, and mode share. Next slide, please. So within that rule that Federal Highways produced, this PM1, there are 5 performance measures that are part of that. And so we have the number and the rate of fatalities. The rates for all these goes by 100 million vehicle miles traveled, so VMT for short. We also have the number and the rate of serious injuries. And then the last one is looking at non-motorized, a combination of non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. Those are all put together as one performance measure, and that's the 5th one. Thank you. So the process itself, the state DOT, Caltrans, sets the statewide targets, and those are required to be set by August 31st of each year. So they set theirs in August 31st of this year. This year, they used an approach of using trend analysis to establish the 2021 targets. So they looked at the most recently available observed data. In this case, it was 2017 to 2018. They established a trend. They also looked at other factors like what projects are being programmed right now that might affect future crash numbers, factors outside of their control, the economy. They looked at other aspects as well to establish their targets. Now, SANDAG is required to set targets in one of 2 ways by February 28th. SANDAG can either agree to support the statewide targets or develop its own regional targets for one or all of the measures that I just listed in the prior slide. So as far as reporting and funding implications, SANDAG reports directly to Caltrans, then Caltrans in turn reports to Federal Highway Administration on that. Federal Highway Administration does evaluate Caltrans to see if it's made significant progress on target achievement. And there is a significant lag on this. Just this year in 2020, Federal Highway was able to do this evaluation process for 2018. And Caltrans did not make significant progress for that year. There's 2 implications with that. One is HSIP flexibility funding, or HSIP funding flexibility, but actually it's not an issue in the state of California. Caltrans does not flex HSIP funds to other pots of money. So that was a non-issue. And then there's also a requirement for Caltrans to develop a HSIP implementation plan. So they are actually initiating that process now. And then the last bullet on here, it's an annual target. So keep on coming back every year on this one. Next slide, please. So as I alluded to in the previous slide, for 2018, Federal Highways found that California did not make significant progress on 3 of the measures. They needed to meet their target or be better than the baseline value. And they did not meet that in fatality rate, serious injury rate, and number of serious injuries. So based on that, the funding implication is a non-issue for California, but they do have to make a HSIP implementation plan, which Caltrans has kind of welcomed as an improvement process as they go forward. Next slide, please. So here we have the statewide targets from Caltrans that they've adopted for 2021. These are included in your agenda packet, I believe on page 24. On the left-hand side of this table, we have the performance measures themselves. That center column is the numeric target, which Caltrans shares with Federal Highways. You'll notice there's some decimal points there. That is a requirement based on the methodology we have to use. So it's a 5-year rolling average is what's required to use, and that's why we have some decimal points on there. To the far right, we have the percent change. So what Caltrans did when they looked at that change, the trend from 2017 to 2018, they found a 2.9% reduction in fatalities across the state. So they applied that going forward to establish their 2021 fatality numbers. And then also with serious injuries, they saw a 1.3% reduction, and they applied that as well. For the non-motorized performance measure, they did a combination of the two to capture all those elements. Next slide, please. So the next few slides are charts that show how the state is doing, and then also how the San Diego region is doing relative to the state. And I tried to structure these all so a little easier to follow along because there's a lot of data on these little charts. So everything in blue is statewide. Those are the statewide values. Everything in orange is the San Diego region. Tried to set that up. The bars are annual values, and then the lines are 5-year rolling averages. Those little tiny green dots or diamonds are targets, past targets. And then there's one oddly shaped green one out there over 2021, and that is the 2021 target that Caltrans has set for the statewide value. Now with fatalities, this is an absolute number. It's really hard to tell how the San Diego region is doing relative to the state. We just have these little tiny little orange bars and then statewide numbers, which are, as expected, much larger. So one process that we've done in the past, we're continuing to use, is to look at the proportion of the San Diego region population, which is about 8.4% of the statewide population, and then look at fatalities in our region relative to the statewide total number of fatalities. So if we advance one slide, here we have fatalities in population. So it's trying to give us a better understanding of how the San Diego region is doing relative to the state. The dashed black line is San Diego County's population. It's about 8.4% of the state. The brighter orange squiggly line is the annual number of fatalities, and then the smoother light orange line is the 5-year rolling average of fatalities. You can see on here that the fatality numbers are significantly lower than that 8.4% of the population. So in general, our region is doing rather well in this area. Noted that there's always room for improvement, but compared to the state, we're doing relatively well. And that's one of the reasons that staff is recommending that we continue supporting the statewide target, since we're not over that bar in any of these areas. Next slide, please. For fatality rate, it's much easier to do the comparison since this data is normalized by the vehicle miles traveled, or how much people drive. So we can see here again, the state values are in blue, the San Diego values are in orange, and we can see that the San Diego values continue to be underneath the statewide values. Next slide, please. For serious injuries, I have this slide, even though the bars, we can't do the association of how the San Diego region is doing. It does show where we are with the targets, and you can see that this is one of the areas that the state did not meet the 2018 target threshold. For 2019, those are preliminary numbers still, or at least at the development of this chart, they were preliminary numbers for the statewide serious injuries. Next slide, please. And then when we look at those same values to get an understanding of how our region is doing as a portion of the state, again, the serious injury numbers are below the 8.4% of the statewide population. Next slide. Serious injury rate, again, normalized by VMT, it's easy to tell. There were a couple years where the San Diego region was closer to the statewide average, but in more recent years, 17 and 18, we've dropped down significantly as well. Next slide, we'll get to the last performance measure on the non-motorized, the bicyclists and pedestrians. This is again one of the areas in 2018 where the state did not meet the target. And we can see the future targets going off in the distance. And if we advance one more slide, this will be the last chart, I promise. All right, so on here, we can see the bright orange, again, is the annual number. In 1 year back in 2014, the San Diego region did eclipse that 8.4% value, percent of the population. But the 5-year rolling average has maintained underneath that value the entire time. Next slide, please. So just to recap, this is the 4th round of target setting from this federal requirement. The targets are set each year for the following calendar year. For the past 3 iterations, the SANDAG has agreed to support the statewide target. And what that means, if we go to the next slide. So if SANDAG supports the statewide target, we do not need to make our own target and our own methodology for this. We just provide a resolution to Caltrans saying we support it. And then how we actually do that is that within the Regional Transportation Improvement Program, which Sue Alpert presented on earlier today, that actually lists out projects that are safety related. Either they're fully focused on safety or they have an element within them that's focused on safety. And we essentially list those projects out separately and tally up how much funding is going to support safety. And that's kind of how we document how we're supporting it. And that's how we can track as a region how much we're putting into this area as well. Additionally, the regional plan has an appendix that looks at how we are doing and looks at the observed data and how we're trending as we go through the years. Next slide, please. So as far as next steps, we're continuing to go to all the SANDAG working groups that we can get a slot in with. And then we'll be going to the policy advisory committees over the next few months as well. This is, again, we have a due date of getting the resolution, whichever may be, to Caltrans by February 28th. And just as I mentioned in the previous slide, the 2021 RTIP has a section that summarizes all the safety projects that are supporting these targets. And then the plan has an appendix that looks at the documenting our progress towards targets on these. That's all I have for today, but I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Thanks, Sam. Any member comments or questions? You see anything, Jane?
No, I don't.
Oh, Jose, I see him.
Yeah.
This is Jose Ornelas with Caltrans. Is there a conduit to provide funding for enforcement for speed under the influence or seatbelts or anything like that?
So my understanding of that is the Office of Traffic Safety, OTS. They're the ones that deal more with those kind of Governor's Office of Highway Safety kind of grants that are more target focused. And so they have funds from NHTSA that they can use for specific purposes, whether it might be, school zone enforcement, targeted enforcement kind of approaches. As far as how that is arrived at, I'm not familiar with those channels, but that would be, my lead would go to OTS.
Thank you, Sam.
Any other comments or questions before we move on? Okay, I see none and hear none. And we are going to make a few changes to the agenda. So David and Afsana, we are going to put you at item number 9, and we have to move up Andrew, and then Mike, and then David and Afsana. So we're moving along to item number 8. Please, Andrew, take it away.
Thank you, Chairwoman. And I'll try and keep this brief. So we wanted to bring forward an update on the ITTS. Sorry, I'm in my first week of braces, and I'm like learning how to talk again. So if I sound kind of funny, I apologize. Anyway, just wanted to bring forward a recap and an update on the ITTS. What I wanted to talk about first was a recap of the framework of the document itself. So there are two parts to the strategy. Part one really focused on the regional background, existing conditions, how the document and screening tool was developed. Part two, which is really what I stay on and dive into, is the actual strategy. So in that part, we got into the 4 strategies, projects by mode and corridor, agency process, and additional resources. So this is really where I see the bulk and important piece of the strategy as a whole. So I just wanted to highlight some of the 4 strategies and what we've done since 2018 along the way to keep in line with our strategy. So I'll get through this kind of quickly. And if you do have your ITTS in front of you, which I'm sure all of you do, the 4 strategies that I'm going to highlight start on page 33. So strategy 1 was to support partnerships and collaboration. So the main near-term action I would say I wanted to focus on was the biannual monitoring report. I've volunteered to bring this forward and do this by the end of 2020. In the document, you see it's every 2 years. So this is where we just highlight the successes, priorities, action items, and continue the discussion of important projects. So it just encapsulates, what we've done as a working group in relation to the strategy every 2 years. Strategy number 2 was coordinate collaborative planning. So there's 2 items in here that I felt we've done pretty well in moving forward. The first was to develop a task force. So we started that this year. We have a rep from the northern tribes, being myself, a rep from the southern tribes, being Ray Turan. We obviously welcome any of the member tribes to participate in these meetings, but we wanted to keep it to a focus group and a group that would be able to work in the interim between the working group meetings and kind of follow up on those day-to-day tasks. I think that has provided some real value, especially when we combine, our tribal voices. We have Sandag representation there. We have Caltrans and the county. So this has really allowed this smaller group to really dive into the strategy itself. And our partners have been able to, really take a deep look into the projects that are in the strategy, ask further questions on what can be done, where these projects are at, and if there is an opportunity for partnership, then we follow the strategy process, which is listed in section 2.4, where it outlines those agencies' process and what their funding framework and timeline looks like. So it's been a really good group to be a part of, and I look forward to looking at these opportunities and initiatives that are coming up, and providing these updates to the working group, because there's a lot going on. And so we're trying to catch as much as we can at the task force level, and disseminate that to you all, so the group can make good decisions for all the tribes in the region. So I'm going to skip to strategy number 4, create opportunities and fund priority tribal transportation projects and programs. So that's where I'll get back into trying to collaborate on potential partnerships based on the projects that are listed in the strategy as priorities for the tribes. And then getting back to strategy number 3, sharing data to support tribal transportation. The big items within this strategy are maintaining the project screening tool and making strategy updates. Part of the strategy update, or this strategy number 3, I should say, is incorporating the LRTPs, long-range transportation plans. This is a critical piece of not only the tribe's transportation programs, but the region as a whole. I forgot to mention that Leonard Gilmore with BIA, I apologize, Leonard, he's been participating on these task force calls. I'm going to give him a couple of minutes just to provide an update on some of the work that he's done for the tribes in the region for the LRTP updates. Leonard, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, take it away, Leonard.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. As far as the long-range transportation plans, most tribes have the 1996, 97, or 2013 LRTP updates. There are probably some tribes that have updated their LRTP that we are not aware of. So these LRTPs are stored in the RIFDIS, the Road Inventory Field Data Systems, and all the official roads that are in there also. However, a lot of these plans are outdated, so they're 20-year plans according to 25 CFR Part 170, and so they're supposed to be updated every 20 years. Well, they're 20-year long-range transportation plans. So what I've been doing is taking some of these old plans that a consultant has done back then when BIA contracted ASCD Inc. and just kind of modified it and stuff and inserted what we have done so far in terms of addressing the subsection 411 of this 25 CFR, which is the LRTPs are supposed to be updated every 5 years by the tribes. So a lot of them haven't been doing that. And however, I've been assigned and tasked to work with tribes on that. Also the safety plans. So what we have done in 2018 and 2019, we went out all the way from Campo to the border of Oregon and collected level of service data on all the existing BIA routes. So we generated cost estimates on those, and we categorized them 2 categories in terms of routine maintenance. That's under full execution mode, and some of you are aware of it, which is what is called CETA, the California Intertribal Transportation Alliance. And you can, if you're not familiar with it, you can contact Demery, Bill, and also Steve on that. So what we have done is basically, is inserting these cost estimates, the existing control schedule tips. And as far as the control schedule tips, once the funds are known, we will generate the next 5-year schedule. So that your LRTP is supposedly needs to be would be in coinciding with the state tip and the R tip. So that's what the 25 CFR states. So we hope that tribes can take the initiative and move on this template that I've sent out. I only have like 3 tribes that I have not addressed in Southern California and the San Diego region. And if you can work with I think the tribal administrators, whoever the contact people are, and notify them that they need to move on it, so we can at least start compiling this and finalize it. And it works in conjunction with what the regional plan what's going on there, and also trying to figure out how to coordinate all these projects together. So the LRTP that we have compiled is basically a applied approach where we're applying some of these activities now, and I think that's as far as I got as far as the LRTP. So thanks for the time.
Thank you, Leonard. And so the LRTPs for all the tribes are a critical piece of, like I said, not only the individual tribal programs, but this strategy and how it's going to be implemented into the bigger regional picture. So we'd like to get those done as soon as possible. If you have any questions, you can contact Leonard. He can walk you through the process. The process is outlined in table 2.9 of the ITTS, page 67. Gives some really good information on that and some resources there. And so I think the next big ask for the working group is how we are going to update the ITTS. What we've talked about at the task force level is trying to coincide with the regional plan. We never obviously want to lose sight of our tribal priorities, and that is why we're here. But in order to be competitive, we need to be in line with where the region is going. So for example, the 5 big moves, we have our own version of the 5 big moves. Tribal mobility hubs, freight, movement of good improvements, and transit to our places of business. So I want to keep that in mind as we update the strategy and the screening tool. So I know there were some funds allocated to the working group for efforts like this. And so what we would like to do, or what I'd like to propose to the working group, is to retain a consultant to update the projects. That's probably the number one priority. So that would require feedback from each and every one of the tribes and reviewing your individual projects. Are they still relevant to you? Has there been any progress? Are some completed? Has there been progress in terms of NEPA or architectural and design? So that's the next level of update that we want to incorporate into the next version of the ITTS. So I would love to get your feedback, but ultimately, you know, I would like to entertain a motion to allocate some funds to update the ITTS.
Okay, so you're making that motion, or you're asking for a motion, Andrew?
I'd like to make that motion.
Making the motion, okay. And we don't need to put a dollar amount in there, just that you're just requesting some funds be allocated to update the ITTS. Okay, second, this is a second by Ray Turan from Viejas. So the motion on the floor is to allocate some funding. Is this for a consultant to update it, Andrew?
Correct, to retain a consultant to assist the task force through the working group in updating the screening tool and the document itself.
Screening tool, got it. Okay.
I have a question, Chairwoman.
There's a second on the floor, and then go into the discussion. Go ahead, Chairman.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. Yeah, where would the funds be coming from? And if so, could this possibly come out of the 200,000 as allocated to SCTCA from Sandag?
Good question. Jane?
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand from what Andrew's saying, this is the funds that have been provided to the SCTCA.
Great, thank you.
So this would be a recommendation to send to the SCTCA.
Okay. Great. So the motion on the floor, seconded by Viejas. Any further discussion? Any hands raised? Hearing none, seeing none.
Yeah, I
We
don't
have to do a roll call vote, right?
Yeah, hang on a second. Okay, in my list. Okay, Hamul,
Aye.
San Pasqual,
Aye.
Barona,
Aye.
Paula,
Aye.
Rincon,
Aye.
and Viejas. Oh, he said aye. Yeah, yes, he doesn't have a voice. And Southern California Tribal Chairmen's Association.
Aye.
Okay. All right, unanimous.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. And thanks, Andrew, for all the work you've done and for establishing this task force, and for Caltrans and the county and Sandag to be a part of this. It's very important. And the updating is a wonderful idea. So good call, good vote. We're going to move on to item number 9. I know we're kind of running down on our time. Item number 9 is the Assembly Bill 52 draft guidance language for 2021 regional plan. And this is going to be discussed by Michael Connolly.
Thank you, Chairwoman and Hauka, and good morning. I think it's still morning. Yeah, good morning to everyone on the committee. The regional plan has to have an EIR, and within that EIR are requirements for compliance with SB 18, AB 52, and and the other requirements that go along with it. In the previous regional plan, the 2015 plan, there was no AB 52 to incorporate. And when the new plan was started, there was the initial outreach to tribes to see if they wanted to be consulted through the AB 52. At the same time, we also have a consultation policy and a consultation agreement that was made with tribal chairmen. So these are kind of running in parallel with each other. We have had a reboot now with the regional plan, and and so as you're aware of, we're trying to get things updated for that by before the first part of the year, or by the first part of the year. One of the things that we were requested was to draft the language that would go into the EIR regarding the AB 52 compliance. And I had a couple meetings with Brandon Linton and Shasta Goen and Chris Devers, and we've and Jane, and we've kicked around some different ideas and on what that language should look like, since it wasn't in the previous regional plan. And but I went back. One of our concerns that we had was that we don't want to get too detailed in the EIR itself, because we don't want people reading the EIR and thinking that is all they need to do in order to comply with AB 52. That there may be additional requirements that they have, and it depends on the particular project that they're doing. There's also the issue that this, as a regional plan, there's going to be another chance that the tribes will get to go after any particular project that's developed. It'll have its own EIR process that it'll have to go through. So at this stage on the regional plan, I went back and I looked at the 2015 plan, and I drafted some really general guidelines, and Chris and Shasta have seen those, and they really are referring to the referring to the guidelines by the Heritage Commission, and that, you know, when you come, in order to comply with AB 52, these are the things that you should look toward. And I think that was sent out to everybody as one of the attachments on the agenda. And so we just wanted to bounce that off the tribes and see if this, you know, if there's concerns that they have about that. And I don't know if Shasta or Chris would like to add anything to that. And that's it.
Yeah, Mike, this is Chris, and I don't have anything to add at this time. So thank you for the invitation.
Same.
Okay.
What? I know, it's very unusual that I don't have anything to say, so I'm just going to fill it with mindless chatter now.
You're multitasking.
Okay, so I think at this stage we're probably in pretty good shape, because there are no details really for tribes to jump in on, and when individual projects do come forward, that'll be their chance to really go after them. I did want to add one thing to the previous discussion too, Andrew. If you, I'd be happy to sit down with you and work out drawing up the actual proposal to SCTCA, and Chris will work with me on that too.
Great, thank you, Mike.
Yeah, no problem, Mike.
Okay. Did you have anything you want to add, Jane?
No, just to say that the language is incorporated into the full agenda as an attachment. So if there are tribal representatives that want to read through that and have comments, they can, you know, respond at a later time. Just send it to me.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Appreciate it, Mike. Thank you. Okay. We're going to go head up back to item number 7, which is the Tribal Road Safety Program. David and Afsana, please, the floor is yours.
Yep. I think that David just messaged me that he has to leave to another meeting at noon, so we might have to table this to another meeting.
Yeah, if that would be okay, that would be good. The meeting I have to go to is my two grandkids between their Zoom meetings. I take them out for a break, and I'm committed to do that at noon. So,
and that is a priority, and so we're happy to see Stephen.
Okay. Anyway, I really enjoy. I listened to most of this and learned a lot from the presentation. So, thank you.
See you soon.
Yes.
Okay, so the last thing on the agenda is topics for the next meeting, but the next quarterly meeting is going to be held in January. We're proposing January 13th, the 20th, or the 27th. I'm open to hearing, you know, when is the best time for everybody. Those are all Wednesdays. I'm going to propose the 27th, which is January 27th. My third Wednesdays are usually for my general council meetings for the tribe. Actually, the 13th or the 27th is open. Any other comments from the committee members? Any date that works best, or should we just schedule it and then move forward?
Both those days, spring con, they both work for me. They're fine.
Oh, thank you for your flexibility, Councilman. Okay.
Anything for you.
Thank you.
The 13th would work better for Paula.
Okay. Thank you, Shasta. Appreciate it. 13th. I'm good with the 13th.
Well, good with the 13th.
Let's do the 13th. Sold. You got that, Jane? January 13th.
13th. Okay. Yeah, and Chairman Romero had a comment on the let's see. Yeah, a comment on the ITTS item.
Yes,
Chairman. I thought I texted Jane back, and I just thought it would be helpful, or I totally support moving forward with the motion and utilizing the money for the update on the ITTS. But I think it might be a good idea and give time enough to, I heard Michael working with Andrew and try to come up with some sort of a number. I know it'll be less expensive than the first go around because it is an update, but still there's a lot of work to be done because you're gonna have to reach out to the tribes and get their input and see what they want to update or take off. So I totally support that, but I think it'd be helpful for the tribal leaders at SCTCA to have some kind of a figure in mind when that's presented to them.
And it is anticipated in the scope, so there is some guidelines in there in terms of cost and level of effort.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
comment. Thank you.
Erica,
Yes, sir.
and maybe possibly by then we could have some type of report. I don't know if it was over here being bothered by the chairman over here. I couldn't hear what everything Chairman Thorpe was saying there, sorry. But possibly a follow-up on the report when I was asking that question with that development that's going on off of what Shasta was saying. You know, it is true that there are homes already built there, and there are other plans for another development to be coming in with another large development of homes. I mean, we're talking this one that they're doing here right now. There's supposed to be like 630 homes going in,
Oh my goodness.
and they are going in. And then the rest of that new second development, they said around 800.
Mhm.
So we need to get some type of
An update.
response back from the county, and you know, I'm sure they're well aware of what's going on out here. So maybe we can ask those questions and see if we can get a follow-up on the next meeting. Thank you.
Richard Chin, is there a possibility, could you follow up with that from the county?
Yeah. I think I can try to follow up on that and or communicate with some of my teammates and PDS.
That'd be good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Richard. So we are set on a next meeting, which is January 13th, 2021. It's already going to be 2021 really soon. A couple of things I wanted to bring to the committee's attention before closing. We have a joint meeting at the Borders Committee, November 20th. It's SCTCA and the Borders Committee. Everybody is welcome to attend. I'm sure it's going to be another format like this. It's going to be a Zoom. So please advise your leadership and encourage them to attend, and also love your presence there. Second, November 4th, next week, next Wednesday, is a Native American Advisory Committee to Caltrans, also known as NAC meeting, and that's at 9 a.m. Everybody is welcome to join that too. I just received an email from Lenora Graves, who's the chief, you know, of that division, of the Tribal Liaison Division, and she is asking for nominations from Southern California because we only have one rep right now from Southern California, and that's myself. So I don't want to throw anybody's name out there right now, but would love for someone from this committee from the South to be able to join in on the Native American Advisory Committee. If they want you to think about it, if you're interested, please let me know, because I will make that nomination to Lenora. And I think that's about it, unless there's any other comments from the committee members or the public.
Just one question, is the time okay for, I know that Ray was saying that the Viejas has their tribal council meeting, but I'm not sure if it's every Wednesday or if it's that particular Wednesday. So time frame, is it for the next meeting, is 10 to 12 time frame good? Ray says he'll make it work. Or is that everyone else?
I will make it work. That's what he says. Yes, everybody else, is that okay? 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. 10 a.m. to 12 p.m.
Sounds good.
Wonderful. Appreciate you all for taking the time again today. Please watch out for your elders, watch out for your family, especially watch out for your youth. As Chairman Romero mentioned this morning, we are having an epidemic of opioid abuse. Take care of yourself, wash your hands, social distance, and be well, all of you.
Thank you, everyone.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Right on.
Thank you.
Peace out.
Peace out.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.